Thomas Park here, and just sharing a few more thoughts as I tend to do. This time I wanted to kind of express what I would call the country western issue or dilemma that I've found to be kind of a model for some groups of ideas that kind of make sense and sort of stick together in my mind. Now, country music, first of all, is not necessarily a problem, I think, but traditionally when I've listened to country, and I've listened to quite a bit of country. My mother and I used to listen a lot in her car, and sometimes at her home, and sometimes I'd hear it at restaurants or various places. And more recently, I've gone to a place that's a cowboy bar in St. Louis where couples come and dance and have full cowboy garb on and take it fairly seriously. There's a lot of live music, and it's a high energy place for those who like country. So the Midwest has come back to being big into country music, and even though it's not my favorite, it's a fairly consistent, recognizable folk trait that a lot of people like. It come will drive miles to hear it. But basically, in country, I've always thought it's a music for a life that's difficult because there's this contradictory sort of thing. One of them is a lot of people in country settle down into these small towns or cities where they might have generations of people there. People know each other in the town, or some of them. But then there's this other side of country where people are always getting up and moving on to other cities or to other places to escape debt or trouble, to escape the law, personal issues, to flee an abusive relationship, etc. Many, many songs written in the country style about people just picking up and moving on. Whether that's, taking a trip itself or a change in life or an end of another one. And there are also a lot of references to disposability of relationships, poor treatment, rough treatment, being treated poorly at work and then also at home, not really having a chance to realize what it would be like to be treated with tenderness or a gentle nature, and really living a rough and tumble life. So, as far as country goes, very much when I think of today's sort of secular spiritual situation, one of the things I think it allowed people to do was to feel like they didn't have to commit as much to one another or anyone. And as a result, we have kind of a country western country where people who have personal issues may not necessarily have the older institutions as much to rely upon, especially if they themselves don't believe in them. If I don't believe in the church or I don't follow it, then if I have a problem, I'm not as likely to get the help from a minister or a priest. It would be much more helpful if I believed in it. Then that would enable me. I do believe in Christianity, but as a believer, then if someone gives me some insight, I'm more inclined to believe that might be helpful to hear. I remember I was in part of St. Louis, and I noticed the Optimist Club is closed and shuttered, or being used for something else anyway. No one goes there much anymore. So the country western effect of struggling to live well and just having it hard, tough jobs that don't pay well, having to move around on the drop of a needle, results in a culture where there's this contradiction of people who are really established and have been around a long time versus many, many people who seem to come through quickly, work for a while, and then go. I would say I never wanted to be that latter type of person, but once I fell into this situation where I didn't have much money, working service job after service job did kind of lead to the situation where, managers expected people to come and go. You often wouldn't go very far up in the ladder at work, and people didn't realize that you'd come to work for a while, you'd have to leave. And so overall, just this sense of freedom slash transitory nature, where it would seem almost for a while someone would come and serve a purpose and then leave. most people would argue and say they had a sentimental value, that they liked those people or cared about them. That's very much a personal issue for people to decide themselves. I tended to be a little surprised and shocked if people would come and go without even a note being made by the people, other people at the job, for example. But all in all, I don't know if being treated lightly is so much conscious as a symptom of the fact that it's a tough life and that people do have to come and go a lot. And I call it the country western conundrum because America has a struggle of, are we people who are entrenched and embedded in a traditional historical culture? Or are we always surfing the wave of the future, going off to do the next thing we have to do for whatever reason, more the sort of moving ahead, exploring, and brothers duking around. So I don't really know if there's an easy answer, but it seems to me that the weird thing is that both properties seem to exist in many situations, and it creates this odd way of having a hard time really getting a picture of the bigger values, the larger values in conflict, without considering both who's moving through quickly and why, and who's been stuck around and why, and if and what does that matter. So, Thomas Park here just with some thoughts of the country westernization of America.